Game day, rapidly approaching. Time for keys to the game in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. There are so many keys, so many things that are going to determine the outcome of this football game. We got a lot to talk about. Let's zero in on a few of them. Time for keys to the game. If you have enough keys, maybe you can unlock the door. And the door to victory needs to be unlocked. You know, I thought the Bengals have got it figured out. The first two games of the season, they did not start the games out very well. And that was a big key. A quick start, a fast start to the football game. Well, against Pittsburgh, definitely not a fast start, 31-yard pick six. Eventually, the Bengals are down 17-3 in the second quarter. That's not where you want to be. Battle back, tie the game 20-20, but you lose the game 23-20 in overtime with 56 seconds left on a 53-yard field goal. So, understandably, it's like, hey, now we know we have to get off to a fast start. So, next opponent, Dallas Cowboys. First two drives the Dallas Cowboys have, they go 18 combined plays for 150 yards, two 75-yard touchdown drives. Bengals are down 14-3 at the end of the first quarter. Bengals defense has only given up 5 touchdowns all year long in 5 games. They gave up 2 of them in the first quarter of the game down in Dallas. How do you explain that? So now you're down 14-3 at the end of the first quarter. You come battling back and tie it 17-17. You lose on a 50-yard field goal at the gun. Now that's 2 games in a row. Didn't get off to fast starts. Well, learn your lesson. New York Jets, Miami Dolphins, win the coin toss, elect to receive the football, go right down the field in the first drive in both those football games, score, take a lead, play with the lead. Things are looking hunky-dory. You never trail in either of those football games. You win 2 football games. This is it. Lesson learned. Then you come to Baltimore. First 4 drives for the Cincinnati Bengals offensively. The first play of the game, they gained 11 yards. The first 13 plays of those in those 4 drives, they gained a grand total of 22 yards. So take away the first play of the game where they gained 11, 12 other plays gained them 11 yards. 12 plays, they picked up 11 yards. They had 3 straight 3-and-outs. After that 11-yard play on the first play of the game, they go 1, 2, 3 and out basically, and then 3 straight possessions, 3-and-outs. Halfway through the second quarter, they rebound, wake up, but they're already down 10-0 mid-second quarter. But they rally back. It's tied 10-10 at the half. They have 2 good drives, touchdown drive and a field goal drive in the half of a quarter in the second quarter. They come all the way back and they take a 17-16 lead. But last drive of the game, Baltimore puts a drive together that's good enough to give Justin Tucker, the GOAT, a 43-yard field goal at the gun. The Bengals lose 19-17. It's very simple. Score first, play well early, 2-0. You don't, you stumble around a little bit, let the opponent get a 2-score lead on you. It's very tough. They're 0-3. Simple formula. Score first, get off to a fast start, prevent the opponent from doing so. In the first quarter, the Bengals have been outscored by 9 points in the 5 football games. Second quarter, outscored by 3. Minus 12 in the first half. Second half, they've outscored the opposition 21-9, 12-point advantage, and in the fourth quarter, 34-12, 22-point advantage. They have still not allowed a touchdown in the second half in 5 football games. And they've, outscored people by 34 points in the second half and been outscored by 12 in the first half. have a fast start, and finish the football game. That's going to be the big key. That's going to be a massive key in this one. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's simple. When you're playing from behind, you start to count how many possessions are going to be left in this football game. What do I have to do? How many times am I going to be able to take a shot to score? Your playbook shrinks. You become more one-dimensional. There's a little bit of a sense of urgency. You have to suppress the desire to take big-time chances. You want to still have calculated risks, not big-time chances. Climbing back from 2-score deficits is draining. It's not an easy thing to do in the National Football League. The margin for error becomes very minimal. Pressure to perform perfectly increases. You're not going to be perfect, and you're not going to score first in every football game and take a early lead, and play well early in every football game. But so far, it's going the wrong way. You have to be more consistent in doing so. They've done it twice and won. They haven't 3 times and lost. Got to start turning that around. You have to do it more often. Get the lead, hold the lead, build on the lead, win football games, finish football games. That's the first key that comes to mind for me. Every coach at every level of football will tell you the biggest key to success is win the turnover margin. It affects more football games from Pee-wee football all the way up to the National Football League. Ball security. You want to hold on to all of your possessions and not give any away, and you want your defense to hopefully give you a few extras and take some away from the opponent. That's going to help the cause. There's no question about it. With the New Orleans Saints, there's a good possibility of that occurring. The New Orleans Saints are -8 in the turnover ratio after 5 football games. That's dead last in the National Football League. They have 13 giveaways. So they've said, in 13 possessions, don't really want this one, you can have it. 13 times. Dead last in the National Football League. So the Bengals have an opportunity to maybe pad their statistics. They're +1 themselves. It was even against Baltimore. Really, both teams had a turnover. So that wasn't a huge factor in the football game. But in terms of fumbles, holding on to the football, that's a big deal. And the 13 giveaways the Saints have, 6 of those are interceptions. But this stat's almost mind-boggling. They put the ball on the ground 12 times already, tied for second most in the NFL. They've lost 7 fumbles. That's the most in the National Football League. They've lost 7 fumbles in 5 football games. 7 fumbles lost, 6 interceptions, 13 giveaways. The most generous football team in the National Football League in the turnover ratio. That's going to be big. And then along with turnovers, you got to talk about penalties in the form of self-destruction. The New Orleans Saints have a 2-3 record, just like the Cincinnati Bengals. And a big reason that their record's not better is that they are self-destructing. As we talked about, -8 in the turnover department. How about penalties? That's the other form of self-destruction, where you're just giving up hidden yards because your technique's poor, or you forget snap counts, or whatever the case may be. They have 40 penalties in 5 football games, second most in the National Football League. 8 a game for 376 yards. That's second most in the National Football League as well. 40 penalties for 376 yards. Man, when you look at the penalties and the turnover ratio, you wonder how the New Orleans Saints are 2-3. This is a pretty good football team if they don't hurt themselves. Self-destruction has been a major, major issue for the New Orleans Saints. See if that continues against the Cincinnati Bengals. And as we know, football is all about scoring more points than the opponent. It's that simple, right? So you got to talk about red zone. All right, let's look at the red zone for the New Orleans Saints. 15 times they've been in the red zone. They've scored 12 touchdowns, 80% conversion rate, touchdowns in the red zone, second best in the National Football League. That's pretty extraordinary. Defensively, the opponent's been in the red zone 12 times. They've only allowed 4 touchdowns. That's 33.3%. 1 out of every 3 times they get in the red zone, they allow a touchdown. Third best in the NFL. Offensively and defensively, they're in the top 3 in the NFL in red zone touchdown efficiency. That +8, 12 touchdowns scored, only 4 allowed is a huge ratio in their favor. I mean, that's one of the most favorable red zone touchdown ratios in the National Football League. Here's the thing. When you look at the low red zone, and this is an area where the Bengals have struggled, but low red zone, first and goal at the 10-yard line or inside the 10-yard line, Saints have been there 11 times, have scored 11 touchdowns. How about that? Riddle me that one, Batman. that leads the league, obviously. The Bengals offensively have only converted in the red zone 56.3% of the time, tied for 19th in the NFL. 4 times they haven't scored any points in the red zone, tied for second most in the NFL. 4 red zone possessions, no points. Those are backbreakers. Those are killers. When you get in the red zone, at least convert a field goal. Hopefully you can score a touchdown. Hopefully you can figure out a way to punch the ball into the end zone and score that touchdown. But from the Bengals standpoint, their situation in the low red zone, first and goal, inside the 10-yard line or better. 12 times they've been there. They only scored 7 touchdowns. 58%. 26 of the 32 teams in the NFL are over 70% on first and goal situations. The Bengals are at 58%. It's hurt them. It's hurt them big time. We've seen it. Third and short, third and goal, fourth and goal, third and short, fourth and short. That's been a big problem area for them. Bengals are going to have to get that up to at least 66%, 2 out of every 3. 65 to 70% would work pretty well. Again, the Saints, 11 for 11. Red zone, low red zone. First and goal situations going to be big in this football game. Another huge factor in this football game is the running game. The Bengals running attack showed some life. There's no questions about it. I thought the offensive line opened some pretty good holes, and Joe Mixon was very decisive in taking advantage of them. Joe rushed the ball 14 times, 78 yards, 5.6 a rush, a 12-yard long carry. P. Ryan added another 17 yards on 3 carries, 5.7 a rush. As a team, they averaged almost 5 yards a carry, 4.8. They were barely at 3 yards a carry. They almost, half as much as what they've been showing prior to this football game against Baltimore, who's a pretty stout defense against the run. Thing is, Baltimore was the first team that rushed the ball for over 100 yards against this Bengals defense. They had 155 on 28 carries, 5.5 per. Lamar Jackson led the way with 58, and he had a 19-yard run on that final drive that was a killer that put the Ravens in field goal position for the GOAT, for the greatest of all time. He had a 19-yard run. Dobbins had a 17-yard run. Drake had a 14-yard run. Duvernay had a 12-yard run on a reverse. Going to have to control and contain those type of things. And the New Orleans Saints are pretty good running the football themselves. As a matter of fact, they're darn good. They're in the top 10. They run the ball for over 136 yards a game, which is 10th in the NFL. They average 5 yards a carry in so doing, which is 9th in the National Football League. And Hill is ridiculous. I mean, this guy is Taysom Hill is the Swiss Army knife extraordinaire. Taysom Hill averages 10.9 a rush. He has a 60-yard touchdown carry. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns on 21 carries. 5 rushing touchdowns. The reason they're so good in the low red zone, Taysom Hill. He could line up here, there, or everywhere. So beware. There's no question about that. Going to have to control that running game. The New Orleans Saints throw a lot of different things at you, just like the Baltimore Ravens do. And when Taysom Hill is at the quarterback position in the Wildcat, it's just like trying to defend Lamar Jackson in the quarterback run package that they have. The good news is the Bengals just got done with the best in the league defending Lamar Jackson. Now they get a taste and dose of Taysom Hill, but it's not like they haven't prepared for this type of situation, different types of athletes. Taysom Hill is a little bit different. He's got deceptive speed, pretty good power, but it's going to be very, very interesting. Will the Bengals be able to run the football open up play action passing and everything that goes along with it? And will they control the running game of the New Orleans Saints and make them have to be one-dimensional? And they're kind of limping and gimping a little bit at the wide receiver position, which would be a big deal. So let's see what happens in the run game. Big key this week. Who's going to be able to run it? Who's going to be able to stop the opponent's running game? One of the big reasons the Bengals football game against Baltimore was 19-17. Explosives weren't a big factor in the game. Both defenses did a pretty good job of minimizing big explosive plays by the opposing offense. The Bengals only had one play of over 20 yards on the night. That was a 33-yard reception by Mike Thomas, who was basically one of the guys they rolled in there because Tee Higgins couldn't go. And boy, how big a factor was that, by the way? As an aside, Tee Higgins misses 2.5 quarters against Pittsburgh and basically the whole game against the Baltimore Ravens. In both of the division games, they don't have Tee Higgins, who's basically another number one receiver. Not having him in those football games, big reasons the offense was a little bit out of sync and they had some problems. Tee Higgins is a heck of a football player. On the flip side of it, the Baltimore Ravens, they only had 2 plays of 20 yards or more. They had a pass to Duvernay, Jackson Duvernay for 21, and then Jackson to Mark Andrews for 20 yards. Only 2 explosive plays, the Baltimore Ravens offense, and they were barely explosions. You know, they had plays of 19 yards or less, but that barrier of 20 yards or more, explosive plays, both teams did a pretty good job. You're going to have to do that again. The Bengals are going to have to create some explosives and figure out deep 2 safeties deep, cover 2. As you know, everybody's been doing it. The Saints, no dummies. They're looking at tape. They're going to play a lot of cover 2 against the Bengals. There's no question about that. And make Cincinnati, their offense, make the Bengals offense, force them to adjust, run them out of cover 2 with that running game that hopefully is on the rise. But explosives for the Saints, Hill has a 60-yard touchdown run. The opposition has a 69-yard touchdown run against the New Orleans Saints, though. They're giving up 4.5 yards a carry on their own on that side of the football. Olave has a 51-yard catch. Landry has a 40-yard catch. Kamara has a 54-yard catch. Smith has a 48-yard catch. 1, 2, 3, 4 different guys with plays of 40 yards or more in the air. Combine that with a 60-yard touchdown run. None of those big explosions offensively have scored touchdowns, but you're almost flipping the field by at least half a football field with these big explosive plays that they're getting. They have given up a 69-yard touchdown defensively, and they've given up a 67-yard touchdown pass. So teams are getting explosive plays against this New Orleans Saints defensive football team. That's going to be a big factor in this football game. Who's going to make some explosives? Who's going to prevent them? Big deal. Another factor in this football game is both defenses are really good on third down. The New Orleans Saints, defensively, they're only giving up 29.9 conversion rate, basically less than 3 out of every 10 third downs they're allowing the opponent to convert. That's second best in the NFL. The Bengals are under 33% themselves. I mean, they're giving up less than 1 out of every 3. That's 9th best in the NFL. Which offense is going to be able to sustain drives, convert on third down, stay on the football field? It's going to be a big deal to make it 3rd and 4 or less. You don't want to be 3rd and 6 or 7 or more, 3rd and 3 or 4 or less. It's going to be a big factor in the football game. Unless you're tearing it up on 1st and 2nd down, making a lot of big plays on 1st and 2nd down, and you don't have to get to 3rd down. That'd be nice as well. But 3rd down conversions, both defenses are in the top 10 in the National Football League. Which defense is going to play that way on Sunday? Another big factor in this football game is you cannot underestimate the crowd noise in New Orleans. That dome is loud. Those fans are rabid. They are always in full throat, and they are big-time supporters of the New Orleans Saints. I'm telling you. The Bengals went to Baltimore, and they faced the same thing on Sunday Night Football. People were up in the bit for that one. There was no question about it. And you didn't see a whole lot of false starts and things of that nature. The communication The nonverbal communication was very, very effective in that football game, pretty much, for the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know, maybe Mark Andrews' touchdown pass might have been a little bit of an issue from a communication standpoint, but I don't think that was a crowd noise problem. In New Orleans, it's going to be every bit as loud as it was in Baltimore. They have a decibel meter down there, and they want the fans to peg it every single time they possibly can. It's going to be where you're going to have a tough time hearing yourself think. Have to stay poised. Handle the crowd noise. Big deal in this game. So there we have it. More than a handful of keys to the game. If the Bengals can come up on the right side of most of these factors, these big keys to victory, keys to success, the Bengals will even their record at 3-3 against the New Orleans Saints on the road. Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.